This is a holiday season coming upon us, a period of celebration and joy. But as we prepare to spend time with our friends and our families in the coming weeks, it's important to remember that there are many families out there that are hurting across this country. As I visit with Hoosiers, people from Indiana, I hear concern in the voices of parents trying to make the mortgage payment, the manufacturer trying to find work, and the business owner trying to make payroll. Too many Hoosier families have a parent unemployed, underemployed, some working 2 or 3 jobs just to scrape by. For nearly 3 years, we've been hearing that this nation needs good-paying jobs for people, and we've been trying to provide that. The President has spoken on this on numerous occasions. In his inaugural address back in 2009, he said, and I quote, "There is work to be done. The state of our economy calls for action, bold and swift. And we will act," he said, "not only to create new jobs, but to lay a new foundation for growth." A year later, in June 2010, the President said, "Our top priority is to recover and rebuild from a recession that has touched the lives of nearly every American." And just 2 months ago, the President said, "Everywhere I go, they tell me they want action on jobs." Well, despite the rhetoric, what we have and what we're dealing with are a series of regulations and policies coming out of the White House that are denying Americans the opportunity to have jobs and preventing job creators from going forward, either through regulations that are hampering their ability to do this or through policies here that we have or have not enacted that would encourage growth and economic opportunity and jobs. Now, for nearly 34 consecutive months, unemployment has been hovering around the 9% official level, and we all know that the real unemployment number is much higher than that. There are people that have given up looking and they're no longer counted. There are people that are working at pay levels and talent levels far below their abilities. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. And so the underemployment number combined with the unemployment number is very, very significant and much higher than what the official number is. Now, for weeks and months, I've been on this floor talking about a whole number of initiatives that I thought was necessary to move our economy and get us moving forward again. Comprehensive tax reform is something that Senator Wyden and I, on a bipartisan basis, have engaged in, and we've been talking about it all year. And yet here we are at the end of the session, and we're not going to be able to accomplish that this year. Hopefully, we'll give it a run next year, and hopefully we can make some progress on that. There's almost a unanimous consensus that comprehensive tax reform, a very complicated, misdirected tax code, this needs to take place. And yet we've now spent a year talking about it, but not doing it. We also know that issues like entitlement reform and reducing the out-of-control spending here is necessary to put us on a more solid footing. And despite the valiant efforts of many and the hard work of many in this chamber, Republicans and Democrats, we've been unable to accomplish and succeed and reach our goal. And much of this difficulty, frankly, has been because the White House has not taken leadership, and the President has not stepped up and engaged in fulfilling the very things that he said are the most important things that we need to do. Let me cite just 2 examples. The first one is still under discussion and hopefully will be part of what we're able to accomplish before we finish here, either late this weekend or into next week, and that is the Keystone pipeline. By delaying a decision for a year, the President essentially is saying we are denying 20,000 or more individuals from gaining work, from becoming a part of the process of building this pipeline, which is so needed and so important for the future of this country. We talk about our dependence on Middle East oil and the blood and treasure that we've had to spend to keep those sea lanes open and that oil flowing to the United States, and yet we deny the opportunity to mine our own domestic energy sources and to use sources that come from Canada, Mexico, the United States, or off our shores. The Keystone pipeline is a pipeline that, if constructed and when constructed, will bring a minimum of about 750 million barrels of oil to this country for refining purposes. It will provide an estimated 20,000 new jobs directly and support hundreds of thousands of jobs in coming years indirectly. My state alone, Indiana, has indicated that at least 100 Indiana companies would benefit from the pipeline. And this project has bipartisan support. 22 House Democrats wrote a letter to President Obama and said that it is in our national interest to have a presidential permit issued for Keystone as soon as possible. That's supported by Republicans on this side, and there are negotiations going on, but the president has said if we send him a year-end bill that includes this, he plans to veto it. Now, it's just makes no sense whatsoever. It's irrational to say that the number one priority for this country is to get people back to work and to provide jobs, and here we have a ready-made job creator that is being postponed, I suppose, just to pacify some extreme environmentalists who don't want one drop of oil or one piece of coal mined in this country or used in this country to provide energy resources. They think that all we need to do is switch to electric, which, by the way, is only produced through burning coal and oil to provide electricity to plug in your car and make it work, or they want wind and solar. Well, if you've looked outside the window here in Washington or across most of the country in the last few days, and this will last for the next several months, you're going to see a lot of clouds and very little sun. And you're not going to see very much wind. I checked the wind on the way over here. The flag was drooping down. You cannot run a factory. You cannot run a business. You can't even light this Senate based on this alternative energy as it currently exists, and it's costing the taxpayer a lot of money. The Keystone Pipeline also has the support of labor and unions. These are the entities that will be providing the jobs for the project. Mark Ayers of the AFL-CIO wrote that, and I quote, "For America's skilled craft construction professionals, any discussion of the Keystone project begins and ends with one word: jobs. Throughout America's heartland," he said, "the Keystone Pipeline represents the prospect of 20,000 immediate jobs and as many of 500,000 indirect jobs via a strong economic multiplier effect without one single dollar of government assistance." That's right. This is totally paid for by the private sector, providing 20,000 jobs immediately, supported by Republicans, supported by Democrats, supported by unions, supported by right-to-work states, supported across the board by those who feel we need more energy independence. And yet the president says, after having assured us that his top priority is creating jobs, the president says, nope, we're going to yield to some extreme voices on the environmental left that basically say no more oil, no more pipelines, no more coal, fossil fuels are out, it's wind, solar, or batteries, or nothing. So I think I'm just asking the President of the United States to reconsider this at a time when we are struggling in this country to provide meaningful employment for people. A common sense solution to one of our problems is right there before us. And yet we hear from the President that no, he's going to postpone the decision for a year to get past, probably, to get past the 2012 election. So it's a political decision, it appears, that is denying a lot of people work at a time when it's desperately needed. Now, at the same time that the President is asking the Congress to extend unemployment benefits, primarily because of failed economic policies, the White House is blocking this opportunity. And another immediate action the administration can take would be to accept a modest and reasonable provision which would provide a reasonable time of delay on two costly EPA, Environmental Protection Agency regulations, that will deal another devastating blow to our already fragile economy. In the next few days, the Environmental Protection Agency is expected to finalize a rule that could threaten over 20% of the coal-fired power plant generation in the Midwest and the Southeast. And now we've learned that it also has a dramatic adverse effect on power plants in the states of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. So a major part of the country will be affected by this. Known as Utility MACT, M-A-C-T, this regulation will force most of our country's 1,100 coal-fired plants to retrofit their facilities or close their doors. The Partnership for Affordable Clean Energy reported that the closure of U.S. coal-fired power plants will accelerate sharply during the next 10 years because of this utility rule. The EPA's expected announcement on the utility rule comes just after it issued another major rule that will cost additional thousands of American jobs, because starting in January 1, the EPA will begin requiring utilities to reduce power plant emissions that may cause air quality complications in neighboring states. That regulation, called the Cross-State Air Pollution Rule, or CSAPR, is also one of the most expensive policies ever imposed on coal-fired plants. Under this rule, the EPA will require plants to install costly control technologies in exchange for minimal environmental gains. The combined economic impact of the two regulations that I've just mentioned, the combined economic impact of that is alarming. The Indiana Energy Association estimates that the cost of these rules will be between $6.5 and $7.3 billion just in my own state of Indiana. And would you add literally now the whole eastern half of the country, from the Mississippi on over, that will be directly affected by this, this number goes up exponentially. The National Economic Research Associates estimates net employment losses of 1.4 million across the country as a result of the current EPA rules and deadlines. And by 2016, NERA reports that American ratepayers will see an average increase of up to 23.5%, in some places even more, of their utility rates. Now, I want to say this: cleaning our air is a worthy goal, and hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent under the Clean Air Act, which I supported in the 80s and early 90s, because as Americans, we all want to clean our air. And hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent by our utilities, and we've been paying for it through our electric costs, to clean the air. And the progress that we've made has been astounding. And the provisions that are being offered that were being offered in a bill that Senator Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, and I offered together in a bipartisan basis, do not turn back or unwind the progress that we made. And in fact, they don't deny further progress. All they do is simply extend the compliance date for a 3-year period of time and coordinate that compliance date so that utilities can accomplish both of these goals as set out by the EPA, accomplish both of those goals, but in a reasonable time frame, without having a Damocles sword hanging over them, because this rule is going to begin to take effect on January 1 of just this next year, 2012. So we're asking for a little more time. Now, we had a vote here, which I supported, which was to deny these rules. And I supported that because of the substantial progress we've made and the tremendous economic cost it would be to impose these directly on the timetable EPA has set forth. That vote, which is led by Senator Rand Paul, was defeated. And so we've moved now to the next stage, the fallback, which is simply an opportunity to reach the goal, but give us a little more time to reach it. And so I urge the President to consider the Manchin-Coates Act, which is Fair Compliance Act, called Fair Compliance Act, bipartisan legislation to delay the implementation of these harmful EPA rules. Otherwise, our utilities will not have the time to adequately prepare. We will be shutting them down. They're predicting blackouts or rolling blackouts or predicting substantial increases in utility rates at a time when the economy is struggling, and we need every competitive advantage we can get through our manufacturers in order to compete around the world and keep people and get people back to work and back into jobs.